Hello, hello. Welcome to the Awful and Awesome Entertainment Wrap. My name is Abbas.
And I'm Nainika.
And today we are going to be talking about a bunch of things. But before we begin, once again, as you would have noticed, Abhinandan and Rachri are not with us today. So once again, I get to hang out with my Delhi friend, Nainika, and catch up on our lives.
Yes,
pop
absolutely.
culture is just an excuse.
Recession's incoming, the earth is heating up, but Abbas and I are here to talk about what we watched this week and other musings related to whatever we observed from that. So,
Yes.
life keeps going on.
Yes, and this week we have something outside the general TV show and movie sort of area.
Yes.
So we'll get into that. We will be talking about the latest cog in the Marvel machinery, which was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We will also talk about Love, Death, and Robots, which is
The volume 3.
Volume 3, which
Yes.
is which I found out is a very a cult Netflix favorite.
It is.
Of a lot of people. We'll talk about those two. We'll also talk about a very unusual film that I really liked, and so did Nainika, called Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. A lot of it to unpack there. And then, Nainika, you will be telling us about some things I had no idea about. So what are those things?
Balenciaga recently unveiled its new collection, and they hosted the fashion show. So we'll be talking about that simply because it's just like it's going viral on the internet, and there's a lot of shock value to it. So I do want to talk about it. And this and the new song. So this artist called Santigold, which I will talk about how the mechanisms of how her popularity came to be, etc., etc. She released a new single after really long, so I believe there will be a good, interesting little thing to talk about.
I think at this point it's like three layers, like how Abhinandan and Rajki say that they feel out of place and old discussing stuff, so they handed it over to you and me, and now I feel I learned new things from you as well. So it's a nice.
Well, half the
little
things I
flow.
watch on your recommendation. I would not have watched Chip and Dale if you didn't ask me to. So we both have a lot to learn.
Yes. Before we get into the meat of the show, I would just like to remind our listeners and our viewers something that we've been reminding you guys for the last couple of weeks, but I think we should do it one more time. That the Awful and Awesome will be going behind a paywall soon. So if you want to keep listening to these episodes with me, Nainika, Rachri, and Abhinandan, please do subscribe to News Laundry like good people, and do not be mufat khors like Abhinandan says. On that note, we'll start with our first issue of the day.
Yes.
Issue, topic, whatever we want to call it.
Let's call it issue because of how much of an issue I take with Marvel in general.
Oh my God. Shots fired. Nainika is not holding back. Which is, of course, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Nainika, what's the issue?
I'll open it the same way that I always do. You're the comic book fan. When did you come in contact with Doctor Strange as a character? What do you think of it? Do you like him? What do you think of the movies?
So Doctor Strange was never like a top tier favorite of mine. He was someone who was like whenever you would read issues of like team up kind of issues where multiple superheroes would come together to defeat a villain, Doctor Strange would be somewhere there. I like the mystical element of Doctor Strange. If you trace the history of Doctor Strange, there's a lot of he's influenced by a lot of psychedelia of the 60s.
I did not know that.
Yes, the creator who made him, called Steve Ditko, had this one phase where he would just
do LSD.
Sort of. I was trying to avoid saying that, but yeah, you could say that he was drawing things under the influence of certain substances.
Interesting.
So I knew about Doctor Strange, but I wasn't a huge fan.
Okay.
And then when the Benedict Cumberbatch film came, that's when I kind of really hung on to Doctor Strange. I was like, okay, I don't know about the roots of the character, but the way Benedict Cumberbatch plays him was very charming. And I really liked the first Doctor Strange film and the subsequent appearances of Benedict Cumberbatch in many Marvel films. So yeah, I like Doctor Strange. I wasn't a huge fan, but I was really looking forward to
This one.
this film.
Okay.
Because the way it was marketed, was like, oh, this film is going to change the outlook of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and something really massive is going to happen, which I have thoughts about. But what about you? What were you feeling when you walked into watch
Listen,
this?
I'm not going to go into my general, my general opinions on Marvel, etc., because I've covered that on the show a lot.
Yeah. What were we discussing last time
Moon
where
Knight,
Doctor
Moon
Strange
Knight,
came up?
Moon
Oh,
Knight,
yes,
Moon
yes.
Knight, yeah. So without getting into all of that, I'm gonna say that I think this is the second standalone Doctor Strange movie that I've seen. I've seen the first one. Abbas, tell me, was Max Mikkelsen the villain in the first one?
Yes, correct.
Yes, right.
Mads Mikkelsen and Chiwetel Ejiofor
Yeah. They
were
were there.
both kind of,
Technically the
in
villains,
first
yeah.
one, yes.
So I remember watching the first one, and I remember I was a little fascinated with his backstory. I feel like Marvel does, like, whenever they introduce a new character, I'm always really intrigued by the possibility of what can happen, and then sort of like, as it progresses, they treat it a little poorly. So when Doctor Strange as a character, when I saw the first film, I don't even remember when this was. This was like really
This was
long back.
2016.
Yeah, I don't think I went to the theater. I caught it on either Netflix or something, or TV, or I'm not sure exactly. But I liked the first one. This one, I'm going to say actually, you know what? You tell me your opinion first.
It was a mixed bag for me. So I should also tell you that the director who's directed this film, Sam Raimi,
I heard a lot about that.
Is a legendary director. He directed the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films. And before that, in the 80s, he made the Evil Dead trilogy, which
everybody loves. Yeah,
the holy grail of horror, and everybody has borrowed from those films. And he's almost making a film after, I think, some 13 years or so. So I was very intrigued. 13 or 9 or 10 years, about a decade since he made his last film. So
Which was the last film that he made?
The last film he made was a box office bomb called Oz the Powerful or something like that. It had James Franco. It was supposed to be a sequel to The Wizard of Oz, but it failed
bombed
pretty
clearly.
badly. Yeah. So I was actually more excited to see what he would bring to this.
Yeah.
And by and large, I really like the horror sensibilities of the film. It is Sam Raimi of the 80s kind of showing, guys, I can still do this thing. And
even I thought the stylistic choices of the movie were very interesting. You know how it looks like a slasher fic. It reminds me of the time that I was, I was like 12 or 13, and I used to spend my afternoons watching all those Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger sort of slasher horror. And how it borrows elements from that, like all of that zombie thingy, all of that. So that was, I loved the stylistic choices of the movie, I must say. Like, you know how I told you earlier as well that I rank movies on how they appear to me in the theater. And based on that, I thought this wasn't terrible.
No, it's not terrible, but it almost feels like they had a fun little story going on, like you said, a standalone story. And then the executives at Marvel were like, no, but we have to make this connect to 27 other things and put references here and put characters who people will get applaud when they appear in the theater. So yeah, I really loved the third act. The movie's been out for a while, so I'm not going to give away the entire third act, but let's just say a zombified version of Doctor Strange takes care of things, which I thought was very bold because you have one of the most good-looking actors.
Exactly. But I like that stylistic choice. And also the zombie movie, like the whole themes of it were very reminiscent of how Hollywood treated zombies when it started making zombie movies. It's very on point with that. I will have to say the plot made zero sense, though. What the hell was happening?
So what was happening was Marvel has now introduced this thing called the Multiverse.
Oh, yeah.
This is the third iteration of it we watched. We watched it in Loki, in the last Spider-Man film, and now this. And I still don't know what exactly the Multiverse is.
Loki? Which Loki movie? Like 20...
Not the movie, the TV show, Loki.
Oh, does it also have Tom Hiddleston in it?
Yes.
Tom Hiddleston did a whole TV show with Marvel.
Did a whole TV show, yes. 6 episodes, says all 6 episodes of it.
Okay, I guess.
Yes. I would give anything to listen to the fanboys who are pulling their hair out right now. Like, girl doesn't know. And apparently it was the most watched TV show for Hotstar for Disney Plus that year, which was last year.
I had no clue, but I'm glad to see Tom Hiddleston is booked and busy after, teenage girls on Tumblr stopped thirsting over him. Glad he has a career still.
So right now, the multiverse seems like just a plot device that Marvel can use to bring any actor from any property into their own.
Essentially they formalized everybody's contracts, which is why I was thinking when I was asking you whether Max Mikkelsen played the villain in the first one, I was thinking that how did he negotiate his contract, because I don't think I've seen him in any other Marvel movie since. I'm glad he did one and he dipped.
Yes.
So good on Max Mikkelsen's legal team and agent to figure that out, that he's not enslaved for his entire life now. Good on that. Nice.
Yeah. What did you think of Elizabeth Olsen? Have you seen WandaVision?
I have not watched WandaVision, but I will have to say, what was happening? Just her motive. I understand that, probably because most of this media, like Marvel in general, is also supposed to be aimed at kids, so they don't have plot devices that are very intense or all of that. But I'm just like, where is the sense of conflict? Like an average Ghibli movie has more conflict and character growth than like whatever's happening with Multiverse of Madness. Like the motivations behind what Scarlet Witch did were just like all over the place. It didn't make full sense to me. So after a point, it was just like, while it's a good movie to look at, it's very weak from the point of like, what's happening here?
Right. Yeah, I think you're right about that. The motive. I think there's a line in the film, "I'm not a murderer, I'm a mother," or something like that. I'm like, that's not how it works.
I know. It made
Marvel has a mother problem right now. You can't just
mom
the
issues.
motivation can't just be mom issues. Yes, can't just be I want my kids, so I'm gonna kill everyone.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like kids that I spoiler alert. I mean, technically spoiler alert, whatever. But she's just like, my kids that I created in my mind are now dead, so I'm gonna, I don't know, go wreck rampage. And also the thing where so the whole movie, Scarlet Witch, again, spoiler alert technically, but like essentially she's so powerful that it's just like whatever opponent she faces, she somehow manages to defeat him. So essentially her power is like, I don't know, maybe she's one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe. They have that concept of X characters, the most powerful, X characters, the most intelligent, and all of Marvel Cinematic Universe, whatever. Maybe she's extremely powerful, but where's the conflict in a person facing an opponent that they are going to destroy? Like, what is it that you're looking at? Like, forces are coming at her and she's just destroying them without much conflict going into it. I'm like, what is happening here? It's just, what am I looking at? I didn't hate it, I will say, but yeah, I mean, the plot made very little sense. It was still interesting to look at, And they even, I think it was Sam Raimi's thing, like, he treated the multiverse concept nicely, that they travel through multiple universes and each universe has its own, like, stylistic, aesthetic choice and very bold and interesting with that.
And the fact that there was a character specifically just made to travel across universes.
Yeah.
Her name is America Chavez in the movie. I don't know much about her comic book history, but I learned that she's a new character who's queer and very sort of very popular among the younger kids.
Well, Marvel
nowadays.
loves to call things queer, but there's absolutely, I don't know, like there's this like very Disney sense of Puritanism, so they don't show anything queer.
Sort of, it's a very token appreciation.
Yeah,
of,
like 3 movies and they'll probably show her holding hands with another girl, and they'll be like, oh, queer representation.
You know what? So there's a flashback scene in this where we see that America Chavez had two
mothers,
right? And Marvel is going so gung-ho about the fact that they did not cut that scene for the Chinese markets. they want like appreciation for that. I'm like, okay. But
sure,
before we move on to the next thing, I'd just say, so you haven't seen WandaVision, right? What irritated me is that WandaVision was precisely within the span of the show. we were introduced to the idea that Wanda has created her own children. And by the end of that show, she comes to terms with the fact that these children are imaginary and she can't have them.
Exactly. Oh, so then why did she go back on that?
Exactly. So when I was watching Doctor Strange, I'm like, why have they retconned that moral of the story in the last TV show?
Exactly. There's again, I was going to say the same, like, there's no concept of character growth, right? With like essentially you see conflict in other movies, how it proceeds as conflict happens, and then the person learns something about themselves, grows in a way, and then overcomes the conflict. But there's no sense of growth here with the and the growth. I mean, clearly, like, I did not know this about WandaVision, but I didn't know that, like, she put in the effort to understand that, oh, I'm doing something that is psychologically weird. And then in the next movie, she just doubles down on the fact, like, no lessons learned, no best practices, nothing.
No,
interesting.
there is no character growth because the villain of WandaVision is getting her own spin-off. So I'm looking forward to discussing that with you.
Oh God, no!
If there is growth, then the movie will end.
Every episode I've recorded so far, I've had to talk about something Marvel, some superhero, something, and the only one I genuinely enjoyed was Batman.
Okay.
But
so I have to ask you, there's one section of the film where Doctor Strange travels to another universe and he comes face to face with a bunch of new heroes. Did you know any of them? Did you give a shit?
Which new heroes? Remind me again.
So I'll mention the one which is in the trailer. You see Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. I did.
Right. Were you at all excited when they came on screen? You're like, oh, it's that guy from that thing I know.
No.
Okay. Fair enough, Nainika.
I hate to rain on everybody's parade. I'm sorry, but I'm not.
No, that's perfectly fine. It's okay.
But were you? I mean, I should be asking this question to you since you're the one who's more immersed in it.
Yes. So again, it's so weird that for every story point, I'll have to give you contractual obligations of what goes on behind the scenes. So I'll very quickly try and do this without confusing you. So part of Marvel characters and properties were owned by a rival studio called Fox, 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, I assumed the Charles Xavier thing, X-Men is not owned by Disney, right?
Not, it wasn't till last year. And then now Disney being the behemoth it is, that it is now even bought Fox. So now technically Disney owns almost all of Marvel. So they can introduce these characters at their will. So fanboys and nerds like me are waiting for the day when the X-Men will come into the Marvel universe.
But the X-Men will also get the Marvel treatment then.
Yes.
And you're looking forward to that.
You say as if that's a bad thing.
Okay.
So,
but Marvel will definitely shill a lot of money to, whatever a character goes into X-Men, all of them will be buffed and they'll get their own nutritionists. And how Kumail Nanjiani got buffed, everybody would be buffed like that.
Yes. And I look forward to that too.
I do too.
So we were all dreaming of the day when Patrick Stewart as Professor X will show up and usher in the X-Men saying mutants are now part of this universe.
But then, haven't there been a lot of X-Men movies also? And I felt, it's like, as far as I know, none of them were like cult hits or like...
Of course they were.
I only know the one where James McAvoy was, and I know it because James McAvoy is very good looking. But other than that, I have no clue. I know one, Jennifer Lawrence did one. She's
done 3.
Okay, and I know the redhead girl from Game of Thrones. Sansa did one as well.
Yes, Order of the Phoenix. Yes.
That's Harry Potter.
Order of the Phoenix. No. Oh, yes. Sorry. But it is to do something with Phoenix because her character is called Phoenix. Okay, I'll give you a recommendation. Please watch Logan.
Okay.
Hugh Jackman. You don't need to see anything of his X-Men.
I like Hugh Jackman, Logan. So I'll watch it. Sure. Sure, I'll watch it.
It's a superhero film that's done as a Western, so please watch.
Okay. Back when superhero movies had... I'm not going to say anything.
It's from 2013 or 14. It's not like back.
Okay, relatively recent. Back when Iron Man was still good.
Yeah. Okay, so
I'm being too cheeky with my commentary.
It's okay. In June, they are debuting Miss Marvel, which is about a Pakistani teenager.
Oh, yeah.
That I want to watch and I want to discuss.
I think I will watch it. So, Abbas, do you know of Chudails on Z5?
I've heard about the show, but I haven't seen it yet.
So, one of the leading characters from Chudails probably has like a 1 minute role.
Cameo?
Yeah, cameo role, whatever you want to call it. 1 minute cameo in Miss Marvel. And I'm very excited for her because I think she's a great actress and I love Chudels in general. So maybe I'll watch Miss Marvel for that.
You know, Fawad Khan and Farhan Akhtar are also in the show.
No.
Yes.
Fawad Khan is not. There was a rumor. No, okay,
So-
sorry. The rumor was that Fawad Khan was going to be on The Crown, but he's not going to be on The Crown.
Oh, really?
There was, because now, you know,
Okay.
so as Diana's story progresses, The Crown will have to introduce...
Dodi Al-Fayed.
Yes. So they were like, oh, so there were rumors that Fawad Khan might do it. And I was like, oh, I might restart watching The Crown for that. But no, he didn't get it.
You know why I believe Fawad Khan might be in it? Because I've read the comic book, and in the comic book, Kamala Khan dreams about Fawad Khan in the comic. So now they have all the
So they'll have a self-referential. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Now they have all the resources to make it real. So why not?
But I hope Fawad Khan gets the Marvel check. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. True. Cool. So, Doctor Strange, thumbs up from me, and I look forward to the 17.
Thumbs
other
up
things
from
it has
me
spun
also,
off.
actually. I didn't hate it. I know I criticized the plot, and those are my general criticisms of Marvel. I'd say, like, as I always say, if you're a Marvel fan, you're anyway going to watch it. So it doesn't matter what I say. But if you're not a Marvel fan, I still say it's not a terrible movie to watch. You'd have fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Cool. Now let's talk about Love, Death, and Robots.
Yes.
Which series 3,
Volume
which dropped
3,
on
volume
Netflix. Volume 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Now who's being a fangirl?
Well, Love, Death and Robot deserves the love. So, you know.
Sure. So I have to be honest. I think I watched 2 or 3 of the so very simply, Love, Death and Robots is an anthology series, animated anthology series.
Yes.
And each anthology short film has a different style of animation.
So every episode of the anthology is done by a different studio, done by somebody else who's directing it, and done by somebody else who's sort of like in charge of the story. So every episode is sort of like an independent contract given to a studio and given to a person to sort of look. So every episode has a different animation style, but all their animation styles are actually very good to look at.
Yes. So I think saw 2 or 3 of them when Volume 1 dropped,
Right.
out of curiosity.
Right.
And I liked it, but I just wasn't something I stuck with.
Okay.
And then I sort of forgot about it. And then Volume 3 dropped, and you were very adamant that I watch it. And I have to be honest, I didn't watch all of them.
Okay.
Not because I didn't like them.
There's
because I
only
didn't
about 6 or so. So
Yeah, so I watched 4 of them, I think.
Yeah, that's good
and
enough, yeah.
And I'll tell you which one was my favorite. But yeah, I mean, speaking of standalone stories, each of these little anthologies are standalone unto themselves.
Yes.
And so all of them have this little thing, right? Like the Twilight Zone type thing where they end with some sort of a twist.
They do. A lot of those anthologies are also like they're based on short stories or sci-fi short stories written by somebody else. Not all of them, but most of them, yes. So so all of them, like the theme of Love, Death and Robots is supposed to be this existential, this Carl Sagan type of sci-fi where in the end you're left pondering about something or the other. You're left sort of questioning, which is why I think it gets the rap. Because I feel like no mainstream cinema isn't, going to scratch that itch for stories that really truly leave you wondering at the end, except for Christopher Nolan, which is, I mean, brilliant, like valiant attempt on his part. But yeah, so Love, Death and Robots, it's like you get short stories, they're well done, they're very well animated, and they really, really sort of, they create like sort of an emotional response from you, which is why I feel like they got the popularity they have. That's not particularly heavily promoted by Netflix also, but all seasons have managed to be, I think, sleeper hits. And also I think with Love, Death and Robots, it's Volume 1, they tested out this thing where like every person got like a different order of episodes to look at.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't the same. I think it was the case with this. But yeah, the order of episodes is not the same because, again, each episode is not connected to the other. You can start at any point in the series and still watch it.
I think they're still doing it because when the first episode that I got was the Swarm episode.
Yeah.
And when I actually checked to check how many episodes there are, the Swarm episode was actually somewhere in the bottom, but it played first for me. So I guess it's still doing that thing.
So they sort of, So volume 1, it definitely did the thing where the order of episodes is not the same for everybody. But yeah, okay. So
why do you love it so much? And are you an animation enthusiast?
Am I? No, I don't think I'm particularly an animation enthusiast, but I like animation. I'm not going to say. I do hear this criticism, especially from a lot of like people who criticize Marvel, is the fact that in America, animation jobs are not union jobs. So you can force people to work longer hours, and you can force them, you can keep them on contracts, or essentially mistreat like animators.
Yes.
So there's there's always been that thing about animation that I'm not sure exactly.
They are very overworked, and
they are very overworked. Yeah, it's slightly an exploitative industry, but I mean, who doesn't enjoy good animation? So stylistically, yes, but I think what I really like about it are the stories. And I feel like the stories, the scale at which they are and the level of fantasy that they need, they would never be recreated in real life. So animation sort of like necessary for a lot of these stories, which is fair and fine. But
so which one of these was your?
No, you tell me. I've been speaking for you.
Okay, I'll tell you my favorite one. It was Night of the Mini Dead was my favorite, which is about a zombie apocalypse.
Oh, the very short one.
The very short one. It's, I think it's 7 or 8 minutes.
Yes.
It's the small people.
Yes.
I mean, I'll read out the synopsis. This is from Netflix. I'm not giving anything away, but this is exactly what the entire 7-minute film is about. A bit of unholy cemetery sex ends badly, kicking off a worldwide zombie plague. It's the cutest apocalypse you'll ever see. And it really is.
It really was. And the end also was very it was 7 minutes, but it did manage to, 7-8 minutes, it managed to genuinely leave an impact.
Yes.
Because the end is so...
I loved the end.
I loved the end as well.
Like you said, it's very Carl Sagan, and you're waiting for that moment to come, but it takes you completely somewhere completely different.
Exactly. So at the end of it, you really are it really does leave you with something to think about. So... whoever you are, if you can handle watching slightly morose stuff, I would 100% recommend Love, Death and Robots. But there's always that thing. Okay, so...
no, wait, I have more questions.
No, I'm not ending it. I'm still talking about it. Don't worry. I can go on and on.
The second best one I thought was which shows as number one in the list, 3 Robots Exit Strategies, which is which starts as a post-apocalyptic world where machines have survived but humans have not, and whatever remaining humans. So basically, the machines are rummaging through whatever is left of whatever is left of the humans, and it's pretty grotesque because there are skeletons everywhere and everything's rotten, and that is how I think the world will look like in 5 years.
No, don't say that, Abbas. As I said, we should have hope.
Oh yes, we've had this existential crisis before. Once again, I would not give the ending, but it's a beautiful ending.
Yes, it is. It's a very lovely ending. So what I would say even about that episode, there are a lot of these. I've seen in other episodes, like other volumes as well. There's that theme where I think a lot of stories, a lot of sci-fi in general is a comment on how humans their greed comes in the way of survival.
Right.
Where humans are geared about survival, not looking at it as a community thing, but as an isolated or as an individualistic thing. And what Love, Death and Robots is essentially over and over again commented on the same thing, that humans sort of tend to see it as a very individualistic tend to be greedy about survival, and how it never ends well for us. Which I think I really like the one that you're talking about, the first episode as well. But what I didn't like was, that preachy tone that it takes, where it's just we're all doomed, and how humans are. And it's so knowing that, I'm just maybe a slightly different way of looking at it would be really interesting. So yeah, I feel like we as... even collectively or individually or whatever, we're very scared to talk about death because in general it is a very morose concept to sort of think about. And what I like is that the show is willing to embrace that death is something that under circumstances that are very weird or under circumstances that are very completely normal, whatever, death has implications, death is something to ponder about. So, I really like that. Abbas, have you ever grappled with your own mortality, or have you had any particular
Every single day.
What's been the most meaningful moment where you sort of thought about?
You know what? Now that I mean, I don't know about meaningful, but okay, I'm going to be very, I'm going to tell you my emo kid story.
Of course.
When I was, I think 20 or 21, I used to go to poetry open mics and read out poems. And the one poem I used to read out everywhere was titled "Dear Death." And it was a letter to death.
Would you be comfortable sharing it? You should let people have
Oh
it.
man, I should. Let's see if I am able to dig it out by the end of the episode. We'll end the episode with that.
Reciting Dear Death.
Yes, actually, you know what? Actually, do not do this. I was about to say if you YouTube Abbas Momin, that it might show up somewhere. But do not do this. But the best part is, so my father found this poem lying around somewhere in my bag, and he's like, "Beta, itni dardnak poem क्यों लिख रहे हो? कुछ अच्छा लिखो, कुछ ऐसा लिखो जिससे लोग खुश हो." I was like, "No, Dad.
No.
Life is pain." But you know what? I feel death is very humbling. It's very.
It is.
It's like that's the one thing which everyone is on the same level.
True.
Yes.
I mean, yes, but also like.
I mean, sure, the rich person's coffin will be much
bigger,
better,
but yeah,
bigger
ultimately
and
when you
better.
die, or do you have any sense of like, do you have a personal belief? Do you have personal faith that there's something exists beyond death?
Again, that's something that changes day by day. When you're brought up in an Abrahamic faith, you have a very clear sense of heaven and hell because that's fed into you since you're a kid. And then I question that on days. And then I feel, no, there's nothing. It's just you die and everything ends. But then I feel that if everything ends, then what about those who do horrible things? Do they just get away with it? So I want a sense of punishment in the afterlife, but not too harsh because I have also done bad things and I don't want to be punished really badly. So I don't know. It's just one of those eternal questions.
It is definitely confusing to have to grapple with. I saw this tweet recently, which was like, faiths that have a concept of reincarnation or faiths that believe in reincarnation sort of also tend to maybe give rise to people who are willing to give up their lives for movements or for anything they consider meaningful enough because they're like, oh, I have more lives to look forward to.
Right.
I was like, okay. I mean, I personally have never really believed in reincarnation. I also don't really tend to think that our actions would be weighed on a scale and then there is a divine entity that is willing to sort of look at your rights versus your wrongs. But yeah, you're right. When you see somebody doing something really terrible, like say looking at a war criminal, I'm like, are they answerable to nobody for doing what they did? But then again, it's like, that's very difficult to grapple with.
Guys, you're still listening to Awful and Awesome. This is just a little tangent we've gone on. Sort of philosophy podcast.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, can I very quickly ask you what was Swarm about? I did not get that one. It just totally went over my head.
I think it was about the survival of humanity and like basically our hubris, as opposed to the hubris of a character, of a organism that exists in sort of like a very entangled community state and how long those can survive. So it's supposed to be, again, a meta commentary about human greed and how humans sort of have an individualistic sense of thinking that doesn't really help them ultimately. So.
Okay. Like I get the point.
The ending didn't hit me as hard with Swarm.
Exactly. Yes, I was like, that's it. Why did it end and how
exactly.
did it end?
Like most stories, they instill like a sense of maybe fear or something in your heart. Swarm didn't do that, but I understood like what it was about. I have to ask one more thing. Stylistically speaking, which one was your favorite episode?
It's hard to pick one. I think I'll still go with Night of the Mini Dead.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
It had a very sort of school project look to it. That they made a cityscape and there are little claymations of
little tiny
beings,
people. Yeah.
Little tiny people. So even though Swarm was like the most expensive looking because they do very
You
accurate...
didn't watch Jabaro, did you?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Jabaro was insane and intense. My favorite episode, did you watch the one where she's a cosmonaut on Io?
No.
Oh, you missed that.
I will catch up on all of these eventually.
Well, I'll tell you the plot of my favorite one. There is one cosmonaut. So basically, she's on a mission on Io, which is one of the moons of Jupiter. And her spacecraft crashes, it breaks down, and she's supposed to make a journey across the planet as a volcano erupts. And volcanoes on Io release sulfur. So she's sort of supposed to walk in this cloud, in this storm of sulfur, and she's supposed to walk like a really long distance to sort of get to a place where somebody else can pick up her signal and then she can be found, sort of a situation like that. But what happens is on the way she injures herself and she injects herself with morphine. So she has to take this incredible journey across a planet where her life is very clearly in danger. She's all alone. There's nobody around her. She is traversing the very unforgiving topography of a planet that she knows nothing about, and she's high as hell. But it's very existential. It's very beautiful, and it ends on a note of hope, unlike the other stories. Unlike the other stories, you sort of tend to be like, oh, there was, it's all over. But this one very, very deeply sort of relied on hope. It was very beautiful. And it had a sense of the fact that there is life after, physical death or whatever. So it was very, very beautiful to watch. And I absolutely loved it. And
is that why you were asking me about the afterlife? You were setting up.
No, I wasn't. I was just in general asking about death, and that came up, but no. This one, I actually just made the observation now that it also does talk about that.
Okay.
Stylistically, Jabaro was a very, aesthetically pretty to look at. It's essentially the story. It's a bunch of medieval soldiers.
I've seen this. Yeah, I've seen visuals of this in the promo.
Yeah. So medieval soldiers, they're traversing through a forest, and there is one supernatural entity there, and that's all I'm going to reveal about it. It's very short. It's very intense to look at. It's gory. And it's visually and stylistically very intense. So if you sort of tend to get overwhelmed very quickly, I don't think you should. But yeah, it's interesting nevertheless.
A lot of these are quite gory. There's one Mason's
gory.
Rats where they kill a cat. And I was very upset about that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that rat story was interesting. And the end I liked as well for that one.
Yeah. Okay, so overall, as you can see, we have a lot to say and sort of ponder over about Love, Death and Robots. So please watch it. It's on Netflix right now. And for those of you watching on YouTube, this is all you're going to get. As one of my favorite fictional characters said, "Itna paise mein itna hi milega." And the paisa you have paid is absolutely zero. So this is what you get. There's more of the podcast where me and Nainika talk about a lot of other things. You can listen to that in the audio version of the podcast, which you can find on newslaundry.com or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So check out the rest of the show in the audio form on your favorite platform.
Bye-bye.
We, being an independent platform, depend on our readers, viewers and listeners. Support independent media by subscribing to News Laundry. Go to newslaundry.com, click on the subscribe button at the top and pay to keep news free.